My view is to start, but then, of course, Councillor Masson wouldn't be able to take part in the first item.
He was just ahead of Mr. Thwaite, and I walked past him. You didn't see where he went, in which direction he went, did you?
I thought off with planning application number DC 19044796, land opposite Broadmeadow, Walsham-Le-Willows, as set out in our papers. Over to you, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I got that wrong. John's going to introduce it first. I'm sorry.
Rehearsed. No, I was just going to say something just to begin with. I'm not sure how much awareness members may have on this type of application. So this application specifically is a Section 73 application. This is a type of application that allows you to vary a previous application that's been approved. So in this case, we already got the outline permission granted for the erection of up to 22 houses, and that was obviously granted with a number of conditions. This application is not another application. This application is linked to that host application, if you like. What it's seeking to do is vary two conditions of that previous application. It's sometimes called a minor amendment application. There are specific rules, which I'm not going to go into, to apply to when you can make this type of application. But essentially, what we're dealing with here is just the specifics of those conditions that it refers to be varied. And Alex will go through that in more detail. Just to make sure that people are aware from the offset that there is a general difference of what they're dealing with, as opposed to dealing with an entire fresh application and everything involved.
So just to be clear, we're not going to go through the whole thing. It is purely the two amendment items that we're being asked to look
essentially, you're looking at the amendments to what has already been approved.
Thank you. Over to you, Alex.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, as has been set out there, thank you to the area manager for doing that. This is a Section 73 application to vary conditions, specifically conditions 21 and 27, relating to ecology and specifically bats of existing planning permission, existing outline planning permission for application reference DC 17-02783, which was approved for up to 22 dwellings on land at Broadmeadow, Walsham-Le-Willows. And essentially the proposal relates, as I've said, to bats and the proposed extension of the amount of existing tree belt to be protected, which lies to the north and east of the site. The area of tree belt to be protected is proposed to be extended from 70 metres, as previously proposed and approved, to 340 metres, giving an increase of 270 metres, an additional 270 metres. And the proposal is also for the reduction in the width of the undeveloped buffer zone along the northern edge of the site boundary only, and I'll have a slide to hopefully detail that a bit better for you. So we're looking for a reduction from 50 metres to 5 metres. Now, the benefits of this are for what back activity we have there at the moment, and this has all been put to and considered and approved by our ecological consultants at Place Services. And it's more of a bat foraging area, as I understand, for male bats rather than a roost. And it's felt that the 5 metre is more appropriate to that, 5 metre and extension. And in addition to that, the existing conditions with regarding protective fencing to ensure the buffer, and a sensitive lighting scheme alongside that. So there's lots of conditions that all link in together for the benefits of bats, and that's really what we're trying to improve by way of this application. So go through some slides. Again, the general location of the village within the district, general location of the site. This is an aerial view, so to the north edge of Walsham-Le-Willows. Here we are again. So this is the first plan. So in red here is the application site plan for the 22 dwellings. And here is the tree protection zone originally approved, and this is the proposed extension. Now within the site itself here, what was previously approved was 15 metres. We're now proposing to reduce that down to 5 metres for the reasons as set out in the report, and we'll clarify that as we go through the presentation for you. This is that same plan, but with an aerial view instead of a drawing. Constraints map, really lot you can take from this really, but clearly this is a key site which is important to bats and ecology, which we're looking to protect. So therefore, setting that out verbally for you, so it's an application to vary conditions 21 and 27 of the initial reference. The existing conditions inconsistent as they required a buffer zone designed to protect bat habitat at differing widths, 15 metres and 10 metres. Further ecological studies suggest that the off the peg, as it were, with no real ecological reasoning behind it, 15-metre buffer zone is neither the most effective measure for the protection of bat population, nor does it offer the optimum enhancement opportunity in relation to the bat habitat in the area. So we're looking to improve that. The application proposes to vary the ecological conditions, again attached to that that outline permission from 50 metres to 5 metres, with the addition of the protected anti-light spill fence or dense hedge, and that will secure the extension to the protected tree line, as I've mentioned before. The proposals are considered to provide bespoke ecological enhancements in relation to the bat population and beyond. The proposals provide further mitigation and enhancement beyond that proposed with the original host application with greater ecological benefits. So that's what we're really seeking to achieve here. This is an extract from the ecological report provided by the applicant, and here's a more detailed plan for you, which shows the existing area of protection in orange, with the proposed extension in red, and within the site that extended out for 15 metres previously. That's proposed to be reduced to 5. And that's felt that's sufficient and allows for a better character and layout when we come to reserve matter stage for the location and orientation of the houses, etc. And onto some photographs. That is the existing adjacent housing estate at Broadmeadow, and looking there towards the north. And this is, let's see in the distance here, existing tree line, which we're looking to protect, and that will extend away out into the countryside off the page there to the right. And this is the corner of the site looking back from Broadmeadow and up to the north. And as you're coming down Watersfield Road here, this is the north edge of the site. The trees we're looking to protect, and then a 5-metre buffer zone, which is approximately in the location of this existing track, which gives access to farmland at the moment. And this is the existing tree belt, which has a footpath interwoven in it. Yes, all enhancements proposed for that to give it greater protection. And that's as it continues off, again, designated public right-of-way along the other side of Watersfield Road to the north of the village. That concludes the presentation. For the reasons given in the report, officer recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have some questions? Yes, Councillor Haddingham.
Just a really quick one. You just showed two photos. One had a footpath in it, which I thought was the other side of the road, and then the other one was just a sort of a track. So can you just say where they're looking, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's literally the last two.
So this is the existing track towards the north of the site. This is the
Yeah, I understand that. It was the last two. Like I say, one literally had a footpath in the midst of the trees.
Oh, I see, right, okay.
Is that the same side as the site, or is that the opposite side of the road?
This one is the same side as a site.
Oh, because I didn't see, I didn't think there was a footpath there. That's why I was confused.
Yes, it's interwoven with the trees.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it's whether it's a formal footpath or not, but it's certainly there.
Oh, right.
A permissive path.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Field.
Does the protection zone cover all those trees as well, or are they all due for removal?
Okay. Sorry, Alex, you can have to go back. See if we can. So all these trees you're referring to, Councillor Field?
Including them, expanded.
Well, the 5 metres would be beyond that. So these would all be protected, and then the 5 metre buffer zone would be beyond that, approximately where the track is. If you can see that area of green mud there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the tree belt plus 5.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Guthrie.
Just a question, why was it 15 metres earlier? That would have been quite wide, wouldn't it?
Yes, indeed. That was a sort of off the peg distance with no real ecological reasoning behind it. When the permission was originally granted by committee, it was like, oh, we'll give it 15 metres. Yeah.
Those committees, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Field.
Sorry to come back. Yeah, I thought it was something about one width is appropriate for bats where they're breeding, and the other one is where they're hunting, or something you said. But just a brief question. I noticed the density of housing on this site's quite high. I wondered what this change of sort of 10 metres, does that reduce it, or are the figures in the papers as it are they as it was going to be or as it is going to be?
John?
Okay. Well, the application, when it was approved, was really just a red line on a plan. There was no indicative layout proposed, but this certainly would give us the opportunity to provide a less dense and more characterful layout when it comes to that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. No one else, no other questions, so we'll move on. No one from the parish council, no objector, no supporter, but we do have the agent, Susanna Sanlin. Please come forward. Thank you for waiting so long this morning. And again, 3 minutes, please.
This application, as you've seen, seeks to amend 2 conditions on the outline planning permission granted in 2018 for the erection of 22 homes. The application before you does not reconsider the decision. As you've heard, the application proposes a bespoke bat habitat mitigation measure and offers significant enhancements to the local wildlife by extending the tree belt a further 340 metres beyond its existing length. The original condition included a 15-metre buffer zone adjacent to the hedge as a bat mitigation measure, and it was put forward by the ecological consultant at the time as a sort of off-the-peg mitigation measure. This would have been appropriate for a bat roost, but as you've heard, there is no bat roost at this site. And in this instance, a better protection is to offer a longer line for the migrating bats and hunting bats to fly along. Lone male bats require a long sheltered commuting route to enable them to fly longer distances. At the application site, there is just a relatively short tree belt, and beyond this, the bats have to fly unprotected over open fields. This bespoke ecological enhancement puts forward an extension to the tree belt and reduces the width of the buffer zone. By reducing the width of the buffer zone, there is the benefit of bringing forward a lower density and better quality housing development in the long term. The Council's ecological consultant and the planning officer have supported this, and we welcome this as a major ecological benefit. The application also seeks to amend Condition 27, which requires the submission of an ecological mitigation and management plan. We have now submitted this in full, and Place Services, your ecological consultants, have been consulted on it. As such, we ask the committee to allow the revised wording of Condition 27 to simply require compliance with this plan rather than a later submission to be approved in writing. The Council's ecological consultants and your planning officer have recommended the approval of this scheme, so now there is no need to discharge this at a later date. We welcome your officer's recommendation to amend Condition 21 as worded in the committee papers and 27 as verbally reported this afternoon. We hope that the members will accept this recommendation and that you will support this bespoke ecological enhancement by offering your support to the application this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Guthrie.
Can you tell me, should this be granted when any building will commence?
Sorry?
Should this be granted, when will the building commence?
Well, you will still be tied by the original planning, the dates on the original planning application, which I think is there another year to go?
One more year for reserve matters.
Exactly. So yeah, it'll be after that.
Any other questions? Councillor Field.
Probably a bit out of order, but the lighting scheme 22, somewhere in the papers it talked about EMMP as a light, and I have no idea what that is, so I wonder if you could enlighten me.
Yes, so that was what I was talking about in Condition 27. There was a requirement to submit an ecological management, mitigation management plan. So that's what that is. It's a report that we've already submitted.
To pick up on that, because one of the original recommendations, the condition said that the lighting and design scheme prior to occupation. Now I've seen it happen on another site where there were bats, but we've then allowed them to put in street lights that are on a PIR that are on a dawn to dusk setting. So one of those infrared things that flash when you walk past them. We've allowed them to use a dawn to dusk setting on that. So with one condition we're saying you've got to comply with this, but then with another condition, all we've said is a lighting design scheme prior to application. Can I be assured that the lighting scheme we approve will tie in with the ecological mitigation?
Ecological mitigation plan does include restrictions on lighting close to that buffer zone, and also a fence between the buffer zone and the development, so that there's increased protection and cats are sort of kept out and things like that.
It's probably to the officers actually. Given we've just approved houses across the other side of the road to this today, have we not? Does the same ecological mitigation have to happen there that's happening here, or do bats not cross a road?
There were conditions in terms of the ecology on that other site, so there is a consistency between both of these sites. And as I was around at the time when they were originally approved, then yeah, that was all part of the discussion.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Field? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. We don't have anything from the ward members, so it's over to us to discuss, debate and come to a conclusion. Councillor Guthrie and Councillor Field.
Well, I'm quite happy to recommend the proposal.
Field?
On that basis, I'll second it. I'm not sure whether bats vote for me or someone else, but that seems to be a good thing to be doing.
Does anyone wish to debate this or go straight to a vote? straight to the vote, I guess. All those in favour of the recommendation as laid out in page 288 and 289 of our papers, show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, the final item today, DC 180495, the Bypass Nurseries, Bramford Road, Bramford. Which is on page 423 of our papers. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you. So this is a reserved matters application for 20 dwellings. So the reserved matters are appearance, landscape, layout and scale only. Access was agreed at outline stage. You will note on your tabled papers, your late papers, that there were comments from the parish council which relate to the access, but as I've stated, that was already agreed at outline stage and can't be revisited. You'll also note within the report that there are comments from the flood officer. However, the details of the surface water drainage are a condition of the outline, so they're not something that is particularly concerned with in this application, apart from where it relates to the layout. So those are the key planning issues. So this is the site. You will notice that there are quite a few biodiversity indicators on that site. They were dealt with at the outline, where there are ecological mitigation and particularly mitigation for the reptiles, which is what a lot of these show. You'll also notice that there's a public right-of-way along here, and this is the railway. Again, this is the aerial photograph. This is the neighbour here that's mentioned within the report, and then the other neighbour is sort of within the site is Nurseries Cottage. It's located here, and that's to be retained. And then you'll see that there were other buildings within the site. It's an old nursery and sort of stonemason's yard. So there are various derelict buildings and hard standing within the site. Again, further area view. You can see that the site is located sort of between Bramford and Ipswich. So this is sort of the centre of Bramford here, and equally you can access Ipswich along here and then get to the outer suburbs of Ipswich. Again, this shows you in slightly better detail. So this is the site here, it's Bramford, and then here's Ipswich. So it's just on the sort of boundary of the district. This shows the layout. This here is, so the drainage basin would be for the surface water drainage would be located in this area. This is sort of a buffer zone which is required to prevent the site, to protect the site from the noise of, or the potential noise from the trains, and also to provide a buffer for the public right-of-way, which is located along here. So it just allows that to sort of remain in the slightly more rural. The 7 affordable dwellings located here, and then the remainder of the dwellings are located sort of going through here and along here. This just shows the live-work units. Because the site was previously in employment, at outline stage, we did request a level of employment remained, so, and that was for live-work units. So what they have proposed is that the outbuildings, these 5 outbuildings, rather than be garages, will be retained for live-work, well, for work use within a wider sort of live-work unit. And it's proposed to remove PD rights from these buildings so that they can't become residential without the planning permission, and that they have to be used for sort of ancillary employment purposes. They can't be used outside of the dwelling. So these are the the live-work unit. So, I mean, these are the work part of the live-work unit, so these are the outbuildings at the rear. They're sort of designed to be quite multi-purpose, so it does show sort of van parking at the bottom and then office up here, but equally that could be used for storage or office or in various ways. This shows the material plans, so you can just see that some of them are rendered. The ones with the blue lines would be rendered, the rest would be brick, and there would be a mix of red and grey roof tiles. These are the affordable dwellings. These are the one-bedroom flats, which there would be just that one set. And then these are the two-bedroom dwellings. Okay. This is an example of the four-bedroom dwellings. And this is an example of the five-bedroom dwellings. The report does note that there isn't a great deal of sort of mix within the market dwellings. There are all 4 or 5 bedrooms, but there is the live-work unit, which sort of provides another use within the site. And this is just a street scene, just showing one set of the dwellings along here. So you can see they'd be set out like this. And this just shows the refuse collection points. So these are sort of details parking. So the units which have the outbuildings or the garages as work units, they've got enough parking outside for the sort of residential use. So they could park without using those units. Boundary treatment, that would be a mixture of some walls along here, some brick walls, and then some closely bordered fence sort of on the less visible elements of the site. And this just shows some of the photographs. So it's sort of been derelict for quite a long time now. The previous application was in 2017, and there's been nothing on the site. So you can see the derelict structures. Again, there's some more there. That just shows that's Nursery's cottage at the end. So the site would provide access to that with the affordables sort of just before that. Dwelling, again, this is some more of the site. And then there's... And so the recommendation is set out in your report for approval with the conditions as proposed.
Thank you. Happy to open it up to questions. Should we start that then? Councillor Mansell, do you have anything? Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, do we have the means of ensuring somehow or other that the work part of the live-work units are not turned into garages and home gyms and so forth?
Yeah, the proposal is to take permitted development rights away from those outbuildings so they can only be used for employment purposes in association with the main dwelling. So they can't be used as a separate employment use, so that prevents any amenity issues, but that they would only be allowed to be used for employment use without the requirement of planning permission. So if they wanted to turn them into a home gym, they would have to come to us and apply for planning permission.
Councillor Mansell?
Well, I was going to ask about the live-work units because I recall this application coming at the outline stage, and I was thoroughly confused by the whole concept of a live-work unit. But I think it's now been cleared up that the live-work units are actually sort of in lieu of garages, and they're not really live-work units because the people are going to live in the house adjacent to them and work in effectively the outbuilding. Am I reading this correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Moving further along, Councillor Stringer, did you note Councillor Field?
Thank you. I did point out I'm county councillor for this area, didn't I? Yes. Couple of points. First, in para 1.5, can I point out it's as well as Bury St Edmunds, that line feeds Norwich, which is somewhat higher traffic and density. And there's a question that goes with that. Is there any particular provision in the design of the dwellings, like triple glazed windows or something, to allow them to live with that level of noise. You know, it's pretty close, and obviously, you know, mechanical heat recovery systems do allow you to keep the windows closed. So, is there anything that recognises the closeness of the railway line? Second thing is the number of dwellings. It keeps talking about 20, but it says there's 9 4 beds and 5 beds. So when I was at school, that made 14, and I think there's 7 affordable houses, and I thought 14 plus 7 comes to 21. So it's just really, I know the parish council always has been somewhat confused at just how many houses are there, not that it's a colossal number. And looking through to page 435, it talks about archaeological work. Has that programme been completed or not? Because this is an area that tends to have quite a lot of archaeology.
So in terms of the noise from the railway, that was considered at outline stage, and they are providing the buffer so that the houses are set away from the railway, and at outline stage that was considered to be acceptable in terms of noise impact. In relation to the number of dwellings, sorry, they changed a 5 to a 4 very late on to protect the neighbour, so I think that's why I've got the numbers wrong. It's definitely 20, of which 7 are affordable. And then in terms of the archaeology, no, as far as I'm aware, that hasn't commenced. There's been nothing's happened on the site since 2017, but it is a condition of the outline.
Thank you.
Keep coming along. Yep, Councillor Guthrie.
Yes, thank you. I understand the work dwelling or building. Where would everybody put their mowing machines, bicycles and general detritus if they don't have a garage?
I mean, the garage, they wouldn't be able to store equipment within that building strictly. So yes, they would have to put a shed in the garden. But I mean, the gardens are reasonable size, so you could fit a garden shed within there without preventing.
So you're not withdrawing PD rights for that purpose then?
What we're not preventing withdrawing rights for new outbuildings. We're just saying the outbuildings that are shown as live-work units or as the work element of the overall live-work would only be able to be used for employment purposes.
Yeah.
Sorry to kind of interrupt. Can we just be clear then in terms of the recommendation where it says removal of PD rights on the live work units? That's not a total removal of PD. We need to just clarify that to say only for the prevention of
Domestic use in the workspace. From page 430.
So we are relating purely to the the building that would otherwise be called a garage. So we're only so that removal of rights is only with reference to that building itself. Can we be that clear? Thank you.
Slightly confused. What part of mowing the lawn isn't live? Because if it's a live work unit, what part of mowing the lawn isn't live? If it's a live work unit, surely it's then just a work unit.
Okay, so essentially what we're saying here is when you have a garage, we often put a condition on that says you shall only use it for a garage and you shall not use it for any other purpose. In other words, you can't just stuff all your stuff in there, you have to actually use it for vehicular use as an active parking space with no obstruction. That's how the condition works, or keep it empty. What we're trying to say here is this is the same sort of thing. What we're saying, you can't use this for a car, you can't use this for your domestic storage, you have to use this as a workspace. So this building is for a workspace, and we would remove permitted development rights accordingly to ensure that is the use that this building is for.
Yeah, you want to come?
So then it's not a live work unit, it's a work unit.
If you add the building together with the domestic house that it would be part of, it would be a live work unit in its totality. So you've got a separate building for working in, and you've got the house that you've got to live in. And those are one unit, so it's a live work unit, but it's got two elements within that.
No, we could. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Guthrie, then Councillor Haddingham.
Yes, I just wanted to come back on the explanation that was given regarding clarity on the PD rights on the work dwelling only. But if you're going to remove the way you're wording it, you've got to be careful. Are you also removing the permitted development rights on the actual house? Or, you know, because they might want to extend it out the back as well as put a shed up. So I just think you need to be clear on it.
Yeah, go on.
That was the clarity I was seeking in my question. So let's be very clear about this condition. We are referring to just the outbuilding itself, and we are restricting it so that it's for work purposes only. That we apologise for the wording of removal of PD rights. It's a bit of a red herring. It is specifically constraining the building for work purposes, and that work purposes would be in association ultimately with the house that it would serve. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Haddingham.
Just a really sort of basic one. On slide 7, the site layout, there's some dotted line, and I just can't read it even with my glasses on to see what that line is representing. It's on page 479. That dotted line, I just can't read what it says.
Yeah, that is just showing where the drainage is, so that they have to have a 3 metre easement at that point. So that's why there's no development on that area.
Oh, it's like a ditch or something.
It's an easement over a drain, in effect.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to come back about this business about the PD rights on the live work units, and I think they're actually the work units. But I noticed that in the description of the work units, there is room below to store a van, and you know, is it really enforceable that you're going to stop somebody putting their bicycle or their car or their lawnmower in that downstairs area, which is large enough for a van? I mean, is it an enforceable condition to impose?
Ultimately, the outline planning permission included that as part of the proposal. We are basing the reserve matters, therefore, on that outline proposal, and we are working with what we can work with. In fairness, if you ask me the question, is there a policy to support this? There isn't actually a policy we have in our current local plan for such a venture. So if we take that as we can take it.
Okay, there are no other questions at this point, so we're going to move on. So we don't have anyone from the Parish Council, we don't have a supporter, objector or the applicant, but we do have an email from Councillor James Caston. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to make tomorrow's meeting due to work commitments. Please find my comments below regarding planning application DC 180495, Bypass Nurseries, Bramford. The plan before you seems to be a reasonable use of a 1.5 hectares that has previously been approved by the Planning Committee. The distance of the dwellings from the railway line is an important feature, as I believe any closer would cause noise disruption even with the fence in place. While several mature trees will be removed from the site, I understand that their size and central location would make it very difficult to bring them into the design that best uses the available land. However, I am pleased to see the orientation allowing for several of the trees on the border to remain. As a whole, I find the design and appearance of this proposal acceptable for the site. Kind regards, James Caston. So members, that's all the information we've had. It's now over to us to discuss, debate and come to a conclusion. Councillor Field, straight off.
Yes, I'm going to say straight off, particularly as a ward member. I was ward member recently, but the ward member approves of this. It is a thing that brings forward a site which has been derelict for many years. It does seem to me to be quite appropriate housing, with some slight reservations about the railway line, the proximity of the railway line. I've even noticed that some of the houses are actually orientated so you could put solar panels on the roof. So it has got some benefits.
Can be done.
Whether if I stick my grandson or whatever in one of these little units to keep him isolated, we would ever come along and enforce the fact that doesn't meet the rules. I'm not convinced, but nevertheless I think overall I'm in support of this. It seems to be a good application, bringing derelict land into use, so I'll propose that we accept the recommendation of the officer and approve.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stringer, you were next.
Yeah, I'll be seconding the approval of this. Despite the fact that this kind of design is what Lord Deben would classify as crap, it does show that you can orientate buildings, so the vast majority of them can face the sun. There's 5 of these that don't, whereas the majority of them do face the correct way. Shows it can be done, just needs a little bit of imagination. I honestly, I quite like the live work unit, although I think the naming of it's interesting. I mean, if this would really appeal to someone that like a self-employed electrician or something, they could store stuff and whatnot, it'd be great. How if they were, doing some paperwork upstairs and they decided to sleep in it, how that would then be enforceable, because that's then becoming a domestic use, not a business use, I really don't know. But frankly, it's just a house with a sort of garden office, really, and store. So I'm happy to move approval, even though, like I say, there's a few reservations about the design, but it's sort of what goes as development these days.
Position themselves and speak for themselves, and so I don't think we should. Yeah, so I think if Lord Deben isn't here to be able to answer accusations, I think we've got to be a bit careful. Councillor Haddingham, you had your hand up.
I was just going to second the...
Does anyone else wish to speak? No? Happy to go to a vote? All those in favour of the recommendation, as laid out in our papers on page 430, with the inclusion of the PD rights only being taken away for the outbuildings and nowhere else. All those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for today. Look forward to seeing you all on Friday when we start all over again. Thank you.